Hey guys, welcome to my new movie collections update video for the month of November. I hope you guys enjoyed all the videos that I put up last month for October for my October horror film spotlight month. I have another nice little selection of movies that I watched within the last month or so. Something along those lines anyway, so let's get started. The first video or movie that I have to show you is this old film that came out during the 80s called The Day After. Right? This is new too, huh? Holding on a different side. Yeah, I like that. Anyway, guys, so it's kind of like one of these post-nuclear nuclear Holocaust type films. It just seems to kind of play on the idea of what would have happened if the Cold War really did escalate to the point that all these countries started basically firing nuclear weapons against each other in the aftermath of those particular tragic events. But for the most part, it's a really good film. It came out during the 80s. There are a lot of really well-known actors in this. The only one that I can think of, the only two I can think of right now at the top of my head are John Lithgow and the actor from Steve Guttenberg from Police Academy. Those are the only two actors I can kind of think of from the top of my head. But there's some other recognizable actors that you might recognize by face that are also in this movie. But overall, it's a really great film. It's something that if you're interested in what if scenarios, especially like post-apocalyptic scenarios dealing with nuclear warfare and things like that, this is probably one of the more realistic films that came out at that time period, coming out of the Cold War. So I definitely say, if you haven't checked this movie out, definitely give it a shot. It's worth a look, and it's very thought-provoking. All right, the next film that I have to show you is with James McAvoy. This film called Filth, and I got this on Blu-ray at Best Buy. Now, the basic premise of this film is that basically James McAvoy plays a detective who's a bit of a coke addict as well as a sex addict as well. And so he's basically just figuring out ways of trying to sabotage everyone else so that he can win the position. But then you slowly begin to dive into, basically everything that he does. And you begin to spiral into his world of the drinking, all the abusive sex relationships that he's involved with. And you kind of also dive into another aspect of the character as well, because there's kind of like another alternate dark side that he has, and it's kind of like the reason why he kind of really spirals downward into the alcoholism and all the bad sexual relationships that he has, or the abusive sexual relationships that he has. But for the most part, I say it's a pretty interesting character study to see James McAvoy play this particular character and see just how he spirals downward and how well he does, in terms of his performance. I found it really enjoyable. Hopefully, I was able to explain, the basic premise of this film as best I could. So, I definitely say check it out. It's definitely worth a look. The next film that I had to show you, of course, you saw it during my, videos last month for my October horror films spotlight review, and it is the film Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Again, for those of you that grew up fearing clowns, I'm pretty certain that this movie probably had something to do with that fear, and I don't particularly like clowns myself, but I probably wouldn't be deathly afraid of them as I know some people are, and I know that there's a condition for that as well. I just can't think of what it is. But anyway, the basic premise: aliens that look like clowns come to Earth and they start taking people because they're harvesting them for food. So they encapsulate them in cotton candy and they drink their blood from there. So it's pretty interesting. There's a lot of fun. Looking again at it right now, with all the touched up visuals and all the remastering that was done, it actually looks really good remastered on Blu-ray. And some of the clowns still look kind of creepy, but I'm not as freaked out as I was when I was little when I first saw this movie. But overall, it's a nice, fun popcorn flick. The next film, of course, also comes from the 80s, and it's something that I remember seeing a long time ago and being deeply engrossed and deeply enamored with one of the lead female character in this movie. And now that I have it and seeing it again, I have to say that I'm still deeply enamored with this woman, and it is the film Life Force. The character that I'm talking about is of course Matilda May, and she's basically the lead space vampire character in this film. So now, just to give you a quick premise, the film is about these astronauts going to space I believe they are trying to study Halley's Comet, I believe. It's either Halley's Comet or some other comet that, always passes through Earth, every certain number of years. And as they're trying to study it, they end up finding out that there's an alien craft literally alongside the comet. So they venture into the craft and they find these three crystallized, capsules in there with human-like aliens on them. I mean, they look human for all intents and purposes. And one of them is the woman, female vampire character played by Matilda May. And they bring them back, and she escapes, and she starts pretty much, attacking people by absorbing all their energy and leaving them, pretty much dry, literally bones. And that's basically the premise of the film, is that basically every person that was drained by the vampires ends up draining other people, and it kind of spirals. It keeps going. It's like a vicious cycle that happens. And even though the movie just primarily takes place in London, but it really does kind of give this really, really, ominous feeling of dread that, the entire world could have actually been, could have fallen victim to these vampires because of the way the cycle works. And going back to Matilda May, oh my goodness! I remember when I first saw this movie when I was younger. I literally fell in love with her character, because she has a very specific look about her that is so she's beautiful. Let's put it that way in this movie, and it's like, wow. It's like that's all I'm gonna say. She is drop dead gorgeous in this movie. And then even when you see the special interview segment that Shout Factory did for this film, she still looks hot despite the fact that she's older, but she still looks amazing. So it was good to actually see her in and kind of hear her thoughts on the filming of the film of Life Force. Interesting hearing her take on how when she was given the role of this character, how she basically didn't know any English at all at the time, but she just memorized her lines very well, that she sounded like she spoke fairly decent English, but at the time she really didn't. So it was quite an adventure for her to get used to, being on a movie set and dealing with, all the stuff that was going on during production. And again, just seeing her thoughts back on the whole filming process and just being in a part of this film. And this film actually is really good, for the material that it's kind of, because it's based on an actual book, I believe. But it's really good, actually. So I definitely say, guys, like I said last month during the review segments, if you haven't seen this movie, I definitely say check it out. You should definitely add it to your collection. I know I got it, and I'm glad I did. So the next film that I have to show you is this film with Lawrence Fishburne called The Signal. I did not know what to expect going into this film. I remember seeing the trailer for it and thinking that it looks like it could be kind of similar to how the film Chronicle was done, just that it wouldn't be, first-person handheld camera, because it's about, an alien abduction, and these kids end up turning up with supernatural abilities later on. But when you watch the film, it ends up turning into something actually much more or much greater than that, because you end up finding out that like their limbs have been replaced with like alien hardware equipment that actually makes them stronger. And it's a pretty interesting take, because you're getting the impression that basically the U.S. government is holding them hostage because of fear of contamination and all this stuff. So they're being held underground. They're questioning them, and the lead character is trying to figure out what happened to his friends. But Lawrence Fishburne's character, who's playing like the lead government scientist, is not letting them know, or not letting them have too much contact with each other just yet at the beginning. But eventually later on they kind of do get back together, the three friends that the movie kind of revolves around. And everything that kind of happens afterwards, leading into the actually really surprising twist ending of the film, was actually it was done really nicely. I was really, I was entertained. I was deeply immersed in the storyline. I really liked it a lot. It was kind of really gratifying to see, that sci-fi movies can still be done, rather well, and maybe borrow a little bit off of previous films, but kind of add their own new twist to it. And I have to say, this one actually it worked. I liked it a lot. So definitely check out The Signal if you haven't done so, guys. It's really a really great sci-fi film. It almost seems like it seems to borrow heavily or is inspired by movies like District 9. you know, to be very specific in terms of some of the designs of the, you know, the alien appendages that you see in here. But overall, it's really good, guys, and the twist ending, you know, is actually really amazing. So definitely check out The Signal. And the last film that I have to show you for, you know, this movie collections update video is, again, another film that I showed you during last month's October, you know, horror films spotlight month. And it is the film Sleepaway Camp on Blu-ray DVD combo pack. This movie, I didn't know what it was going to be like, especially seeing, you know, parts 2 and 3 that had Pamela Springsteen on it. So those were kind of campy, kind of almost comedic in a way. And this one was a little bit more serious. I mean, it had its comedic moments, but it was a little bit more serious in tone and in trying to present an actual really good slasher horror film. And I have to say that the production quality of this film is actually really good for, I think it was done on a low budget, but it was really good for a horror film coming out of the 80s, especially, you know, with things like Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and Halloween pretty much dominating, you know, the horror slasher genre at the time. And this one actually came in, you know, really good. And I believe at the time it grossed, it was one of the highest grossing films in the horror genre during the time that it came out, during the, you know, early 1980s. And it was probably one of the only horror films at the time that had the most shocking surprise twist ending that, you know, that kind of concludes the first film, which is, you know, why it's considered one of, you know, one of the best horror films for its time. I have to say that this movie was actually really good. You know, the actress that played Angela Baker, Felice Rose, she was really good. She was really cute too at the time. And when you see again, Scream Factory is just doing an amazing job, you know, conducting all these interviews and bringing a lot of these actors back to do interviews for the new remastered releases of these films, and she is unbelievable. I mean, it's like, wow, she is quite a looker, you know. But it's really a lot of fun just to hear all their thoughts on the, you know, being part of the film, you know, everything they experienced, you know, the relationships, the friendships that they formed, and things like that. You know, it's really a lot of fun. So I really found it enjoyable, and even as a horror film, it was actually really good too, guys. So definitely, if you haven't seen the original Sleepaway Camp, I definitely say check it out, guys. It's definitely worth it. It's a lot of fun. And that's pretty much it, guys. So that's all the films that I have for this movie collections update video. Hope you enjoyed everything, you know, that I showed you and what I had to say about each of the films. As always, guys, you know, like the video, leave me comments, tell me what you think about what I had to say about these films. Let me know what your thoughts are on these particular films themselves as well. And stay tuned for the next one, alright, guys? So until then, stay safe and keep watching films, guys, alright?